Hi everybody, thanks so much for joining me on this wedding planning tips series. This is my 6th now, and today I'm joined by Anne by Anne, who's a wedding planner. Hi Anne.
Hello my darling.
Thanks so much for joining me. When I knew I was doing this, one of my first people I thought must try and get Anne on. Because I've known you for ages, yeah, I know. And you're a wedding planner, so it fits really well with wedding planning tips. The idea behind the whole IGTV thing. We met a couple of years ago. I was actually second filming an event in Kensington for Kate and Brent from Lumiere. And I remember saying to Kate, oh, I recognise that woman over there. She off the telly. She's been on The Apprentice. And I saw Kate talking to you, and Kate was like, I don't think she's been on the TV. And then really randomly, the next day, I was second shooting for Kate Duckmanton from Juniper Green Photography. And you were the wedding planner there.
I was.
Yeah. And I came up to you and I said, like, that little anecdote from Kensington. And you were actually on Long Lost Family.
I was. I think that's like coming up 3 years ago now, maybe.
Yeah. It's just one of my
3 years ago.
I can't watch that show and not cry. So emotional.
Oh, me either. I mean, and my show, even when I watch it now, I still bawl. You know, and I was in it, but that was a pretty amazing experience to kind of find my sister, who is literally my best friend now, and just still. I mean, she's probably going to ring me whilst I'm doing this interview. She rings me every day. So.
Oh, that's so nice though. It's just so, like, I just watch it and can't believe what some of these people have gone through. And
I know. I think ours was quite a nice story because, well, I mean, obviously it was sad because Kathy found me after our mum had died. So we'd lost mum, so she never got to meet mum. But we've just had an amazing reunion, and you know, we are so thick now. It's like you can't, when you meet us together, you can't believe that we weren't brought up together. Because we're so tight, and that's pretty amazing, because we know people who've gone through the long lost family process and then it just hasn't worked out, they haven't got on, or you know, so and that's even more heartbreaking really. So we're very, very lucky. Very lucky. But yeah, it's funny that you recognise me from that. That's so weird.
Well, I just automatically assumed The Apprentice because I love that show as well, and I was like, she must be off The Apprentice, you know.
But it looked like I'd been on The Apprentice. Well, it's so smart.
And then the next day after that, I went out for lunch with my friend John, and he was recently engaged, and he was telling me how, well, not recently actually, I think they've been engaged for a while, but they hadn't made any wedding plans at all. And I said, you need a wedding planner. And I got my phone out and I emailed you straight away, just going, my friend Johnny's a wedding planner, I think you'd get on really well.
Oh, and do we?
Yes. So great. I just absolutely love that first time that they were meeting. John was like, we're off to meet Anne, and then he messaged me and went, Anne's a state, I don't know why you've recommended her to me. And I was thinking, what? Really? And then he FaceTimed me and you were all drunk.
We were so drunk. It was like the most unprofessional meeting I've ever had in my life. They got me absolutely wasted. And I remember the next morning waking up to my phone ringing and I saw it was John. I was like, oh my God, my head was, I mean, I was still in bed. And I answered the phone just thinking, oh, what did I do? This is going to be so embarrassing. And he just went, we want you as our wedding planner. We think you're amazing. And I was like, okay. Honestly, it was the funniest thing, but yeah.
Oh, good. Well, I'm glad it's worked out because, I know they love you too. So, but you haven't always been a wedding planner. Do you want to just give me a bit of background about how because you've been in the wedding industry a long time, haven't you?
Long time. So I started out, so a bit of background about me. I've got 4 kids who aren't really kids anymore, so they're now aged between 18 and 27, and when they were all quite young, I moved to Leighton Buzzard from Merseyside, and I just took a job, just a part-time job in a bridal boutique. I was never a career girl. I'd kind of, obviously all these kids, I'd started having my kids when I was quite young, so I'd not had a career as such. I'd had jobs, and I went to work in this bridal boutique, and I just loved it. You know, when something really clicks and you just think, oh my God, this is what I was supposed to do. So loved the job, hated my boss, absolute nightmare. And I think after maybe 6 or 8 months, I ended up having a massive blowout with him, walked out, and was devastated because for the first time I'd really felt like I'd found my niche and what I was supposed to do. And my husband kind of, you know, remarked sort of very glibly, kind of, well, you know, you could open your own boutique, couldn't you? I just looked at him like, okay, so I have absolutely no business sense. I don't have a degree. I've never done a business. Yes, no, I can do that.
Yeah.
And literally within, I think, 4 months, I opened my shop.
Amazing.
I did it. I've no clue. And I had the boutique for 11 years.
Wow.
So something worked.
Yeah.
But I'm just very much a people person, and I loved that interaction. I just loved that aspect of, you know, working very one-to-one with people, and having that impact on the biggest day of their lives. You know, I know it's a bit like women who have babies, they always remember their midwife. Yeah. Well, they always remember the woman that sold them their wedding dress, because it's a whole experience.
Yeah.
So I just really, really loved it. And I kind of went from strength to strength. And then I started to get asked to go and help out on wedding days. So we went through a sort of a couple of years where lace up back dresses were very in, you know, and mums would be terrified about the morning of the wedding and having to, you know, do this very complicated lace up back. So they'd say, you know, can you come? And if the venue was relatively close by, I'd say, yeah, great, and I'd come along. But then you get involved with other stuff. It's like, oh, you know, how do we do this? Or, you know, I don't know. I just loved being around the buzz of the day.
Yeah.
And that started to become more of a thing for me, that I wanted to get out of the four walls of the shop. And I think certainly after 11 years of being in those four walls, as much as I loved it, I needed a new challenge. And wedding planning was really the most natural progression for me to kind of move into, and I just hit the ground running, and I haven't looked back, and I absolutely love it. It's really hard work, but I love it.
And how many years has that been, sorry, since?
So that's been 4 years.
Yeah, it's about the same time that I probably started my photography journey as well. So
yeah, and I can't even believe it's been 4 years. It's absolutely nuts. But yeah, I love it.
Oh, it's really good. Really good. So I remember when I first emailed you about John, I was like, what? I know what, I saw you in action yesterday, but how involved do you get with the couples that you work with? Are you there from the beginning to the end? Do you just turn up on the day? Like, how does it work?
So, well, I do different services, like most planners. So I will offer, some people call it on-the-day coordination. Some people call it final month management. I probably tend to go with final month management because there's a lot more to it than just rocking up on the day and running the day. So I offer that service, which I'll tell you about, and then full planning. Some people come to me and say they want partial planning. So they've made a start. That's a bit of a trickier one. I kind of like to either be in full control or just be brought in at the end. It starts to get a bit tricky when they're taking control of one part and I'm taking control of the other, because I actually like to have an overview of everything and what's going on and budget and what have you.
If someone had perhaps started planning but thought, I need to hand this over completely.
Then I'm always really happy to kind of like completely take it over. That's absolutely fine. But predominantly what I do is the final month management and full plans. So full plan is where the couple will get in touch with me right at the beginning. And they might have some ideas of venues that they like the look of, or, you know, they might have looked at a couple of photographers, but they generally, as a rule, they haven't booked anything at this point, and they They don't know what kind of budget breakdown they're working with. They don't know anything. So we start from literally from the very beginning, and I will do them a budget breakdown. So they'll tell me what they're working with, and I'll kind of break that down for them into sections. So, their venue, what they want to spend on flowers, and I'll kind of give them an overview of what a typical spend would be. And then we would have a consultation and we would talk through what their priorities are. So actually, I would put in a typical spend for flowers for a typical wedding, for how many tables they've got, how many bridesmaids and what have you. And they might say, do you know what? We want to go a bit bigger on flowers. We want some, big installations. We want it to be very Pinteresty, very Instagrammable. And other couples are going to be quite happy with just the basics. And their priority is maybe having an open bar for their guests, or their priority is having an absolutely kick-ass band. So, and flowers aren't that important to them. So we do the sort of the initial budget of this is easier typical prices. Then we kind of like fit that to them as a couple and what their priorities are. And then from there, that's when we start to build the wedding. We kind of take it from there.
So sorry.
I was just going to say with on the day coordination or final month management, it's very different. The couple have done everything, but they just want somebody to come in the final kind of 4 to 6 weeks to take all of that stress away from them. So kind of dealing with suppliers in those last 4 weeks, making sure that everybody knows where they're supposed to be, when they're supposed to be there, all of that kind of thing, and then run the day and make sure that everything goes to time.
Yeah.
So they're quite different services.
The running to time is such a biggie, because I sometimes feel at weddings I fall into that because I've got the timeline and I kind of think, oh, we're running a bit behind here. Especially when couples are having, say, their own marquee, in their own grounds of their house or the farm or whatever, not necessarily at venues where they've perhaps got a wedding coordinator who's there. I definitely find sometimes time I've talked about it before, time goes so quickly. I just don't think couples think, oh, we've got such a long day, but it just goes so quickly, doesn't it?
It really, really does. And if you run late on the first few things, it impacts the rest of the day, and people don't realize that. They're like, oh, it's fine. It's really not fine. Because if you get to the point of the wedding breakfast and you're running half an hour late, that is going to massively impact what's going on in the kitchen. You can't stall. It's not very easy to stall for 150 covers. It just isn't.
I always say on my timeline, right, up until the wedding breakfast, we kind of can be a bit flexible, and if I can't fit everything in, I'll move it to after the food, because no one likes an hungry chef. That's one thing that they're working to that time, aren't they, when they're cooking for such a big amount of people? So
absolutely, you've just got to try and then again after that you can relax a bit. And it isn't so important if the first dance runs a little bit late, or you can just, it's just a bit more chilled. But up to that point, you've got to keep it really bang on time.
What happens in that circumstance if a couple have booked a venue and the venue is has a wedding coordinator? How do you fit into that? Do you take over? Or?
Well, I think they're quite different roles. And I've had venue coordinators recommend me previously because they really see the value of a couple having their own wedding planner. A venue coordinator works for the venue. So ultimately, they're going to concern themselves predominantly with everything surrounding the venue, and yes, they will kind of help keep things to time and, and run that side of things. And I very much, when I'm working in a venue that's obviously got a venue coordinator, I'm very aware that I'm on their turf. And you don't want to go in with your big boots on and kind of say, well, I'm the wedding planner, so, what I say goes, and this is my domain today. You can't behave like that. It's not right. In a venue, it makes my job a lot easier. I think, certainly from their perspective and from my perspective, we both see the value in each other. So it makes my job easier because I'm not having to watch timings for food and stuff as much, because I've got someone else there watching it, and I can kind of focus on the couple and the guests a bit more, you know, and that's what a venue coordinator doesn't do. So I mean, oh God, I could tell you so many stories, but if, for instance, you know, I've had literally, as a bride and bridesmaids were about to walk down the aisle, I mean, literally the music was about to be cued, and the bridesmaids, one of the bridesmaids had a dress that was like a shoestring laced up back, and she just breathed. She literally just sort of took a deep breath, and her dress pinged, and all the ladies, she was like, ping, ping, ping. And I was looking at her like, oh my God. And I have a bum bag with everything in it. So, you know, sewing kit through to various, you know, kind of paracetamol, super glue, you name it, I've got it in that bum bag. And I literally had to kind of like jump into action and start sewing her into her dress. Now, venue coordinator, that's not in their remit. That's not what they do. And they certainly wouldn't have a sewing kit on their person to be able to do that. So there's things like that that I would do. You know, I'm there to, on the day, just keep the bride calm, make sure that she's got everything she needs. Also looking after, you know, particularly mother of the bride, mother of the groom, you know, they're quite anxious as well. So it's just about smoothing all those waters and being around for those guys, which I can do a lot more easily in a venue, because I know that the venue coordinator is looking after other things. So when I'm in a marquee or a dry hire venue, I'm doing everything. So I usually have a team with me in that sort of case. So I'd have at least 2 other people with me. In a venue, I'd probably, you know, I'd usually take my regular assistant with me anyway, just, you know, because it makes life easier, but it really depends on the wedding. But yeah, definitely in a marquee, there's going to be at least 3 of us, because we've got to be all over everything. So somebody's got to be with the bride, somebody's got to be, you know, in the marquee, you've got to be over all of those different aspects. So yeah, I think that couples who think, well, because my wedding venue has a wedding coordinator, like a venue coordinator, that's me covered, I don't need extra help. But I don't really think that's the case, because, as I say, we provide very different services.
Yeah, and what you've said actually makes total sense to me, that you're right, the wedding coordinator is there to work for the venue, and you're there to work for the couple.
Yeah.
And the couple are your priority, whereas the wedding coordinator would be, like you say, the venue.
And also things like dealing with, liaising with suppliers. I mean, I know a lot of venues would liaise with suppliers, but I'm there to look after the suppliers on the day as well. And you will know, Laura, photographers often get forgotten when it comes to being fed, or, you know, you've got to be fed at a really specific time, because, you know, when the couple are eating, you need to eat so that you can be, you know, fed, rested and ready for the speeches. Now, if you've got a chef that's like, I'm not dealing with supply meals right now, I'm going to be the one that goes in and kind of, that's when I might pull out the big guns a bit and kind of say, do you know what, she's got to be ready for the speeches. So even if I don't get fed, I need the photographer and the videographer to be fed.
So it happens so many times. I mean, I never go back and tell a couple this, because it's their wedding day, but so many times when I know the couple have said, yes, you've got food, and then I have to have a conversation with someone and they're like, no, we haven't got the food for you. I'm like, yeah, you definitely have. And then they say, well, you'll get it at the end when everyone else has been fed. And then you literally have like 2 minutes to eat before the speeches start.
Yeah,
it happens.
Not on my watch.
Yeah, and
not on my watch.
I mean, I'm never going to go up to the couple while they're having their wedding breakfast and say, "Excuse me, I haven't been fed yet." So yeah. But
no, I've had some battles with. I mean, it doesn't tend to happen like in a dry hire situation where we've brought the caterers in. Outside caterers seem to be a lot more on it, I think, with supplier meals, but yeah, definitely I think venues have been a little bit trickier in my kind of experience of, like you said, they're gonna have to wait until we've served everybody, and I'm like, nah.
I've only had it once where I've not been fed, and I know the couple had paid for my meal, so I emailed them to say, I don't know if they ever did anything about it, but you know, you've obviously paid a lot of money for me to be fed, and it didn't happen. So, but otherwise I just kind of leave it and think, Oh well.
It's tough because you know, we are on our feet for a very long time, and you're constantly on your, you know, you don't get breaks, you don't get to sit down and, you know, have a rest. The only time, your only window is when the couple are eating.
Yeah.
So you don't eat then, you don't eat.
No.
Simple as that.
Sorry, just having a quick look at my questions. You've covered quite a lot of my questions in that, so this is brilliant. Do you think some couples must think that having a wedding planner is going to add to their overall cost? But how would you answer that? It's worth it because you keep them on budget anyway, and so then they wouldn't overspend, which they might do.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly is going to add to their cost. You know, particularly if you have somebody do full plan for you, it is a cost. And I might be able to save you money in certain areas because, you know, I might work with somebody who says, oh, well, you know, any couple I mean, I do get offered kickbacks. I never take a kickback. I will always say, what can you do for my couple? So, you know, if, I don't know, let's say a florist or a photographer or a videographer, anybody came to me and said, you know, oh, well, because you've brought me this business, I will give you a 10% diddly-dum. I'm like, no, can we give it that to my couple? So yeah, I would never take that, and I would always sort of pass that discount or that kind of kickback to my couple. It doesn't happen with everybody, but if I can, I'll save them some money. But also, I think couples can get a bit frustrated maybe when they, you know, the first few things that they book, they're like, oh, this is great, this is fab, and they're really enjoying it. And then the more things they have to book, they're just like, oh, do you know what, let's just pick that one. And so they maybe aren't getting the best deal, or they aren't getting, you know, quality for what they are paying. So obviously I do, you know, I work with a lot of people. I know what's great, I know what isn't. I know, you know, I will offer different options. I've just offered videography options to one of my couples yesterday, and there was a real price range. And I kind of thought, you know, you kind of think, are they just going to go for the cheapest one because it's cheapest? But they don't always. So they are looking at, you know, the quality and the price. So I think
there's just so much choice for everything. You know, I don't know how people start sometimes, because I know, like, obviously there's hundreds of photographers, there's hundreds of videographers, makeup artists, everything.
Everybody. And I think that what I do, you know, certainly for the types of couples that I work with, who pretty much are all professionals, a lot of them work in the city. I get a lot of lawyers, people who are really time poor. You know, they literally just don't have the time, quite often, even to speak to me. You know, that's I have that a lot, you know. I'm kind of like, please, can you just answer my email? Or, you know, have you had a look at those videographers yet? Can you just get back to me? Because otherwise, by the time you do, they're all going to be booked. But they're, you know, I work with people who are very time poor. So for them, there's a value in my service because I'm presenting them with really credible options. You know, they're still feeling in control of their wedding because they are looking at different options, but they haven't got to trawl the internet. They haven't got to be like, oh my God, you know, okay, so what does that one offer and how does that compare? I put it all on a spreadsheet for them. So they will see, you know, maybe 3 or 4 photographers, and it will all be on the spreadsheet, and you will see their prices. You will see what they offer for that, any additional, you know, hourly rates or what have you. It's all in this really clear format with links to their Instagram, links to their website. So it's like being a wedding PA, you know, that's kind of what it's like. And they just can kind of look at it, and they'll either be like, yeah, we love that one, or they'll say, none of those are hitting the spot, and can you give us some more options? But I don't like to overface couples, because again, that's, you know, they're looking to me for my expertise to try and match the right people with them. So rarely will a couple come back and go, yeah, none of those are right, Anne.
Because you've done that initial consultation at the beginning where you said, what are your priorities, what kind of, and I guess in that initial stage, you're also asking them what their style is, what they like. So you're getting a really good idea of who they are.
Couple, you know, so you know, you're trying to kind of, you're just trying to match them, you know, the right suppliers with the right couple, which sounds a bit, you know, and I think it's particularly key for people that are around them on the day. So photographers, videographers, hair and makeup people, anybody that's going to be in their orbit on the day, it's really important that you get that personality match right.
Yeah, 100%.
Because they could be the best photographer in the world.
If you don't want to spend the day with me.
No, if they're annoying you from the get-go,
yeah,
it's not going to be great.
And that's why when couples come back to me, I always say, just let me know either way, because if I'm not right for you, that's okay, because I can't be right for everybody. And there's someone out there who will suit them brilliantly. And I guess it's the same with wedding planners. You're going to get different wedding planners. So
yeah, I mean,
so while we're talking about budgets and stuff, how is it that, well, how do you price your service? Do wedding planners, are there different ways wedding planners do it, or?
I think I'm fairly typical in my pricing. Most wedding planners charge a percentage of the budget. So the way I sort of talk to my clients about it is, I say to them, the budget that I'm working with. So take out, you know, what you're going to spend on clothes, so your wedding dress and all the accessories, the groom's outfits, the bridesmaids outfits, take out any gifts that you're going to buy for parents or what have you. So you take out rings, honeymoon, I don't deal with any of that. So take all of that out of the budget, and then what's left is what I'm working with for venue, for flowers, for band, for all of the peripheral stuff. And from that, I've got a 2-tier charge. So I charge 12% of the budget for a serviced venue. So for instance, like a hotel venue where they've got in-house staff, they've got tables, chairs, all that kind of thing. And then for a marquee or a dry hire, I charge 15% of the budget. And that's because there's just a lot more work involved.
Yeah.
You know, you're bringing in a lot more suppliers, like I say, furniture, just dealing with the marquee alone. There's a huge amount of stuff and work that goes into just booking a marquee. There's plans, there's site visits, you know, and then the team on the day. So as I said to you earlier, for a dry hire or a marquee, I'll bring at least 2 assistants with me. That cost is all obviously
out of that 15%. Yeah. So we had a question from Instagram for you.
Oh,
yeah. How do you make large venues feel intimate with the reduced numbers due to COVID restrictions? So this lady is planning on still going ahead in the venue that she's booked, but it sits quite a lot of guests, but if she has to, she's only going to have 15 there, and she's worried it won't feel intimate because it's such a large venue.
I haven't done a reduced guest numbers wedding yet, but my advice would be, and looking at kind of some of the other planners who have done them, I think my advice would be to kind of embrace the space and, you know, not try to shy away from the fact that it's a big space. If you've only got 15 people, I wouldn't put people on separate tables. I'd have one big table. So whether that be a nice big long oval table or just long table,
and space them out.
Yeah, don't space them out. Just have this one big long table in the center of the room. And maybe, because obviously where you've saved on not having 150 guests, you know, think about, do I want to use some of that budget that I did have to go a bit bigger on my decor? You know, so flowers, you could have, you know, flowers on plinths in sort of corners. You could have a big flower installation. You could hire blossom trees to sort of fill some of the space. So embrace it and use your budget in a different way, you know, if you're happy to do that, because I think that you could make a big room actually look quite fantastic and intimate but you need to surround yourself with some stuff.
Yeah, and I think even perhaps they could go bigger on the food, have more courses and stuff, because you're not having the dancing and the partying at the end. You can fill yourself up.
Yeah, absolutely. Extend that meal for as long as humanly possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, you know, I did see one set up, a beautiful venue that I've actually got 2 weddings at next year, the Kimpton Fitzroy in London, and their ballroom is massive. absolutely massive, and they had this beautiful setup in the middle of the ballroom, and it just worked.
Yeah.
It just looked fantastic. And I do think it's just about how you've just got to get a bit creative with your decor, and just think to yourself, well, do you know what, I've saved on feeding all those people, I'm going to really go all out on my decor.
And is that on, did you see that on Instagram? If people head to their Instagram page, they can have a look.
I don't know if it is on Instagram yet. I'm actually quite friendly with the venue coordinator there, so she sent me some pictures.
Oh, you got a sneak peek.
Yeah, so I got a sneak peek of it. So I don't think they're on their Instagram yet, but I'm sure it'll show up there at some point. But yeah, it did look really, really beautiful.
Oh, that sounds lovely. How have you been handling all this COVID stuff? Let's have a quick COVID chat. How have you been handling everything?
Oh, it's been hard.
Yeah.
I think there was so much, it just hit everybody, didn't it, so quickly. And when we went into lockdown, I had my first, so lockdown was 23rd of March, I think, and my first wedding of the year was the 4th of April. So that was a bit pants.
Yeah.
And, you know, I had a very busy April and May. So I went into the damage limitations straight away. And I think I barely slept for about the first 2 weeks, because I was just literally working around the clock, trying to move weddings. And the one thing that was very important to me was not losing suppliers. So trying to work really quickly to find a new date that was good for all of the suppliers. Yeah. You know, I didn't just, and I think that's where, again, maybe having a planner has been beneficial to a lot of people, because I think couples who have tried to navigate this on their own, you know, they've made the mistake of just going to the venue, getting a new date, confirming the new date, and then realizing that, you know, 60% of their suppliers can't do that date. Oh, bugger, you know, whereas I didn't do that. I just went to the venue and said, right, what dates are available? Then went to each of the suppliers and ticked the dates that sort of, you know, were in line with that. And, you know, that was the way I did it. I mean, to be fair, there were a couple of weddings that by the time I got through the list and we'd picked the date that worked for everybody, went back to the venue, that date had gone. Oh, no. So it was horrendous. It was, you know, trying to work so quickly through everything on multiple weddings, that, yeah, it was, and it didn't seem to lose, the momentum just didn't slow. You know, I think we got to like month 3 or 4 before I felt like I could draw breath. Yeah. And then the second wave hit of kind of like, okay, well, September's not going to happen. October's not going to happen, you know, so then you start moving things for a second time. And it just feels, you know, I'm very grateful that my 2021 couples have been so incredibly understanding, because I basically had to park them all and kind of say, I know I still haven't got this and this done, but obviously I've got to deal with these postponements. And they've all been such absolute sweethearts.
That's good.
Because, you know, I just had to stop working on their weddings. And I'd keep saying to them, right, I've just moved there's not going to be any more postponements, I'm back on it. And then that week, I guarantee you something would happen, or Boris would say something else, and another bride would be like, no, Anne, I think we need to move it again. And you'd just be like, oh God, this is never going to win. Never going to win.
Yeah, I was only thinking the other day that I've built up these amazing relationships with my couples from this year, because I've had to speak to them so much and be in touch with them so much that I kind of feel bad for some of my couples next year, because I haven't had that connection with them. So it's on my list to do, to make sure I get in touch with them all and say sorry for being.
And I think everybody understands. You know, and as I say, certainly my couples have, I mean, one of my brides actually messaged me yesterday, literally just saying, how are you? Are you okay? You know, I can see the industry's been really hit, and just wanted to kind of check that you're okay. And I was like, oh, you know, and that's when you can, like, I work with lovely people.
Yeah, the messages you've been getting are just lovely.
Because I think you know, we have been hit really hard. Everybody has, but obviously, as you know, we work in an industry where it's all about positivity, and it's about celebrating love, and it's such a positive thing. And you've got to, you know, certainly me as a wedding planner, I feel like I've got to keep that positive smile on my face all the time. And I think there have been a few weeks where it's started to kind of like fade a bit, and I'm like, I can't do this. I can't move any more weddings.
I've opened up a little bit, I think, and shown how I've been feeling a bit on my Instagram, and brides definitely connect. And I had one bride say, because I was like, oh, I've got a bit ranty, sorry. And she was like, no, I love how you're out there as a like voicing how we're feeling as well, and kind of fighting to get the weddings going. So but that's
frustrating. And I, you just want things to start getting better for next spring, but it's in my head. It's constantly in the back of my head. I mean, I've kind of had a couple of weeks now where I haven't had to do any postponing. So I've really been trying to smash through some of the things that have been parked and get back on track with, okay, what's outstanding on 2021 weddings, and, just get those things booked and sorted, because in the back of my head now all the time is, okay, I've got to get all this done before I have to start postponing more weddings.
Oh, wow. Let's finish on a positive note. Fingers crossed. I just hope next year will go ahead as best it can do. So there's obviously going to be couples who aren't going to use a wedding planner for whatever reason. What are your top tips for them? I can think of a couple from just what you've said, like how you're very organized. So spreadsheets.
I mean, literally spreadsheets are, and I always love it when I first sort of introduce my couples to my spreadsheets, because they are super organized. And the amount of people, and again, because I work with a lot of professionals, the amount of people who literally kind of like, oh my god, we love your spreadsheet. I feel like I should maybe sell them. Maybe I should start that kind of like passive income stream and start selling my spreadsheets to couple who either can't afford a wedding planner or just don't want one. That's the thing for me.
Yes, why not?
Spreadsheets are absolutely key to track everything, particularly the budget, and to keep you sort of on track. So I really recommend that. I recommend doing your research before you start booking anything, doing your financial research. Couples often just pluck figures out of the air. They have no idea, but they kind of go, okay, well, this is what we've got to spend. This is how we think it's going to break down. But they don't have any substance behind that. So then they're quite often shocked when it all starts going wrong, and they just keep going over budget, because their budget probably wasn't realistic in the first place. I do get people who come to me with, a certain budget and then say they want 200 guests. And I'm like, well, that's just not realistic with the budget that you've got. Because obviously the food and drink and the venue and guest element is the biggest part of your spend. So you can either, and I'm very, very honest with people. I say you can either, set your sights a bit lower in terms of your budget, or you cut your guest list down. So I think the first thing is to get a really nail the budget, really get a good overview of what it's going to cost you, what other things are going to cost you, photographers, an average budget for flowers. And that don't just search wedding budget online, because it's going to vary depending on what area of the country you're in. Venues, costs of venues can vary massively. A central London venue and a venue in North Wales are going to be wildly different in terms of cost.
Right, okay.
And so, I would say that. I would also then say, as a couple, you've got to sit down and discuss what your priorities are. Like I said to you earlier, some people might want to spend a fortune on flowers. Other people, it might be the band. Now, you might have a bride who wants to spend a fortune on flowers and a groom who wants to spend a fortune on a band. So you've got to kind of thrash that out, and you've got to have all of that sorted before you start booking things. You've really got to nail that, because if you don't, you're going to have problems. My second tip would be to also allocate a buffer, because there will be things that you kind of go, oh, do you know what? I know we haven't got it in the budget, but actually I really want these really fancy glass charge plates at £4 each, which adds up if you've got 150 guests. So have a little buffer there, so that when you get to the end, if there's something like a little touch that you really want, you've got a little bit squirreled away, that you can maybe kind of go, okay, yeah, we can have that.
And that really sits well with what's happened this year, because I've had a few couples say to me, well, we're going to do the legal bit and have a small restricted ceremony this year and then still have the big next year. So what we hadn't budgeted for is that now we've got to pay twice for a photographer, the event, like venue, food, like on a smaller scale, but it's still extra money that they hadn't budgeted for. So having that offer would have been
just having that just in case. It's your just in case money. Guest list, that's my other kind of top tip. I would say it's the one thing that couples will argue about the most. So I think you've got to kind of be kind to each other over the guest list, and also don't try not to ask too many opinions from friends and family. It's your wedding and you've got to really focus on what you guys want as a couple. The more people you ask for opinions, the more stressful it will get. So I would say keep it very between the two of you, you know, and you decide between the two of you if you want to allow your parents to invite some of their friends. You know, that's always another big thing, another bone of contention for a lot of people. But I would say, yeah, you know, initially kind of just don't be throwing out there going, what do you think? Who do you think we should invite? The big mistake.
Yeah.
What else? Oh, I mean, and I'm not just saying this because I'm talking to you and you're a photographer, but with all of my couples, when we have our first budget meeting, I always say to them, do not skimp on the photographer. Because, and I'm not just saying it, I am such a big believer in this. And I think it probably goes back to the fact that when I've been married twice. I'm still married to the second one. I'm keeping him, he's keeper. But I got married when I was very young. And my mum picked a lot of stuff for me because I was 21 and I was just like, I'm getting married, and she just took over, which was fine. But she chose the most random photographer. I mean, he was dreadful. It's just awful. I mean, and it was the biggest regret for me, not having decent photographs. I mean, as it is, obviously, I've ended up divorced. But it really stuck with me. And also the fact that I found him a bit weird. So again, it's like I said earlier, you kind of want to speak to the people who are going to be around you. It's really important that you get on with them, that they are your kind of people, that you just click, because that will make a real difference. But don't
be comfortable on your wedding day. So
absolutely, you've got to have that connection, but don't skimp on a photographer, because your memories are going to be tied up in those photographs forever. That is what you will look back on. And, you know, if it means that you have to shave a bit off somewhere else, I promise you it's going to be worth it. You know?
I always think as well a videographer is worth it, because I know it's sometimes, when going back to budget, it's something that's thought of, oh, well, actually, we've got a bit of budget left, let's get a videographer. But I think the videographer needs to be included in the original budget.
Definitely.
And there's lots of different options. Videography, you can get the full day, short bits, that, you know, there's lots of options. But I just think it's such a nice thing to have.
Oh, absolutely. And I've converted a few of my couples, you know, that have kind of said, no, photography is the most important. We don't think we want a videographer. And I always give them the talk. I'm like, do you know what, guys, there are going to be parts of your day that you just don't see, that a videographer is going to capture. And, you know, things like the speeches, the first dance. And this is, you know, you said about ending on a positive note. I'm going to say something really morbid now.
No, it's fine.
You aren't going to have your parents forever.
Yeah,
they're not going to be around forever. And I think that, you know, seeing your dad's your dad's kind of father of the bride speech, having that for posterity, seeing your mum, you know, having those kind of key people at your wedding that you've just got, because as much as we've got the video option on our phones these days, who really sits and actually takes video of any of their family? I just think for me, it's so emotional to kind of see people in real time, hear their voices, you know. It's, for me, it's like it's a must have.
Yeah. And like you say, you know, especially if it's just me there on the wedding day, they don't go for a second shooter. I can't, although I try and capture everything, I can't capture everything. I can't, you know, I do my best to capture the story of the day, but there's going to be bits that the videographer get that I don't. There's going to be bits that I get that the videographer doesn't. And I also did a post on my Instagram feed a while ago with my mum and dad's wedding anniversary.
Oh.
And I shared, my granddad took the photos on, it was 47 years ago. And for me, I've lost 3 of my grandparents now. But seeing them on my mum and dad's wedding anniversary and how happy and full of joy they were, I can just imagine what they would have been like. And my granddad's captured my other granddad filming their wedding day. So mum and dad have got the film somewhere, which they're going to dig out. But yeah, it's just, it made me feel, yeah, it was really special. I love looking through the pictures the other day because just see, and I think I even put in my post, seeing my grandparents' joy was absolutely brilliant, and like seeing how happy they were.
No, absolutely. It for me, it really is a key thing to not skimp on, you know. And oh my god, the worst is, and it doesn't, the type of people I work with, it doesn't really happen often, but when I had my bridal boutique, if I heard once, oh yeah, no, my uncle's got a camera and he's gonna, and you just be like, no, please don't do it, please don't do that. Because you know, he might be a great amateur photographer, but there's a whole, it's a whole other skill set being a wedding photographer, because you see things in a different way, you capture those moments. You know, your uncle's gonna do some group shots, he's not gonna walk around getting those moments. And yeah, it used to really kind of break my heart when I'd hear a bride say that Uncle Tom's gonna photograph the wedding. But
yeah, it does happen.
Don't skimp. Do not skimp, photographer and videographer.
Yeah, set a budget.
Set a budget.
Be organised.
Don't ask for too many opinions.
Yes, and edit your guest list.
Edit your guest list.
But
don't on your photographer.
Even the asking for opinions one, because I think a lot of weddings sometimes they are influenced by parents, you know, what happens and how things are run. And I'm just such a big advocate of doing things your way, the couple's way, how they want things to be, and really just having a chat about what they envisage as their wedding and how they're going to show their love for each other to everybody there that's there to celebrate. So absolutely. Yeah. Thanks so much for your time. We've had a nice little chat as well. So we've thrown in some wedding planning tips here and there, I feel.
Definitely. Oh, thank you for asking me.
Yeah, but hope you navigate the rest of this COVID weirdness. All right. And obviously we'll keep in touch anyway as well. So
definitely. Oh, thank you, my darling.
I'll see you soon. Thank you, Anne.
Take care. Bye.